But just real quick, I just want to give a quick introduction. And so the next presenter, the next master trainer is going to be Russ Eddie Z. Hazelcorn. Now, Russ Eddie Z. Hazelcorn is the Chief Operating Officer of Easy Trading Computers, a trading computer company on a personal mission to educate traders about trading technology. Now, he is a full-time trader and complete computer nerd who speaks the trader language. Now, Eddie Z has a 17-year career as a licensed stockbroker, and these days he just enjoys trading his own accounts exclusively. He holds an undergraduate degree in accounting from Penn State, as well as an MBA from Lehigh University. And also joining him will be Matt DeYoung as well. And so if you two want to go ahead and take it away, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter now.
Okay, so let me know if you guys can use your GoToWebinar control panel. This is Matt here, and you should be seeing on my screen right now, take the computer benchmark test. If you could just let me know by typing a Y in the chat box. And Eddie, if you can see it as well, let me know.
Yes, I can.
Great. Klaus, Carl, appreciate that, guys. Everyone's awake and here, but thanks for joining us. And I'm Matt DeYoung, and I'm here from Easy Trading Computers. And as we mentioned, I'm joined here by Eddie Z, the COO of Easy Trading Computers. And we are going to give you some important information today. And I want to talk first, Eddie, about what exactly we will go through so everyone knows what to take away. And we'll be going through 3 specific points. As you can tell, it's a short time together, and we want to give you an opportunity to ask questions. So we'll give you some great points, and those are going to be about avoiding the biggest trading computer misconception. Eddie will walk through exactly what that is and what to do about it. And then we'll talk about whether the computer you're using right now, or maybe you have a dedicated computer just for trading, how do you know if that'll work? How do you know if it's up to the benchmark? We'll go through step by step, and Eddie has a criteria, sort of rule set that you can walk through, and you'll be able to do that with us today. And the third thing is we'll go through a minimum checklist for trading, covering everything from what's inside your machine to even how you connect to the outside world via the internet. And then a bonus item, it's very timely for this year, 2014, that is Windows XP, and why traders need to be very concerned about using that. So that's what we're going to cover today, Eddie, and we'll do our best to leave time for questions. But the first thing is I would like for people to know how you got started with computers, and if you could just kind of kick it off from there.
Sure. So I just want to take you back to when it all started for me in terms of computers. I'm going to bring you back in my time machine to 1980. I was 11 years old, and a close friend of mine got a computer. He got something called an Apple II. If you guys remember some of the computers, that really the introduction of personal computers back then. And he got this computer, and I went over to his house after school, and he showed me how he had his telephone connected to the computer, and people were actually calling into his machine and leaving messages, one call at a time, leaving messages on his computer. He had set up something called an electronic bulletin board. His was specifically for comic book characters. It was called the Batcave. And I just thought this was the coolest thing in the world. People calling in and leaving messages on this bulletin board. So when I went home from his house that evening, I began a campaign, a drip campaign on my parents to get me a computer for the holidays. But what showed up under my tree that year didn't really look like this. It was something called a Commodore VIC-20. And if you guys remember this machine, or even if you don't, I'll let you know now that the thing was essentially a toy. It had the hard drive was actually a cassette. Like, remember cassettes? Some of us might not even remember them now. But it would take 45 minutes to load a program if it actually loaded properly. And it was I just found this thing to be nothing like my friend's machine. I got very annoyed, and when my parents went to sleep that night, I took a screwdriver, I pried the thing open to try to figure out what was wrong with it. Like, why wasn't it powerful enough, strong enough to do what my friend's machine did? And really that's where my passion and my lifelong ambition to make computers stronger, more powerful, faster, it's where it all began, Matt.
Well, I think that's important because it talks about how this has been a lifelong pursuit. And if I was your dad, we need a picture of that slide where your dad's freaking out because you just took apart your gift. But your dad had another role, and I think that's important to talk about how you know how to talk or how to talk about what traders know and talk their language. And I want you to just talk about how you got started in Wall Street.
Sure. So Wall Street has been in my blood forever, essentially, because my father was a floor trader on the New York Mercantile Exchange. And really, ever since my first memories, some of my first memories involve my dad bringing me down to the floor with him. And I loved going to work with him as a kid. Days I had off from school, I would beg him to take me to work with him because it was just a fun place to be. The rules of everyday life didn't apply on the floor of the New York Merc. Men behaving badly, if you will. And as I got older, as I became a teenager, I became very, very interested in what was going on down there. I asked my dad to teach me. He taught me how to draw point and figure charts using pencil and graph paper. And he showed me if there's very specific patterns you can look for, and they repeat themselves over and over and over again. And that's how he made a living. I just thought it was the coolest thing. I knew I always wanted to be involved with the markets, even at such a young age. When I finally finished actually high school, I got my very first job the day after graduation as a clerk on the floor, 1987. I worked every summer, every winter break, every spring break on that floor, all the way through graduate school, trying to make money and learn about the markets. And ironically, I actually became a stockbroker when I finished graduate school, and I spent 17 years as a licensed broker, but have been day trading stocks going all the way back to the early 90s. So very involved with Wall Street, long career as a broker, long career as a trader, and that's how I got involved with Wall Street. It's just always been there for me.
Well, so I think that's interesting in terms of your two experiences on the Wall Street side, on the technology side, but when did you start building trading computers?
So I started building trading computers when I very first got my license as a broker. We're talking the early 90s, and I got put in an office. I started at a small firm, and they had a boardroom, essentially a bunch of cubicles with 25 traders or so, and I shared a cubicle with a guy, and we had one computer in the middle of us. And he had been there about 3 years, and I was the rookie. And if you look at this picture, you see those old screens. We used to have 3 columns of stock symbols, and maybe there was 75 symbols on the screen. He had allocated me about 5 symbols in the lower right corner because I was the rookie. So I was a little annoyed about this, and I marched into the branch manager, and I said, you know, I can do surgery on this computer and add a monitor to it. With some coaxing, he agreed to that, and that was really the first, quote, trading computer that I built. And as my career grew, I was always making my machines more powerful, faster, stronger, adding monitors to be able to see as much of the market as I possibly could. I was even the guy in the 1990s with the four big CRTs on my desk. And that's really when I started building these things aggressively was in the 90s, because other brokers in my office, they were just kind of jealous of what I had. They asked me to build stuff for them, and I would. My father's group of traders on the Merc retired, and he was always sending me people to build computers for. But it wasn't really until about 2009 when a friend of mine said, go to Google and type in trading computers. And I guess I never really thought of doing that, but when I saw what came up and what these companies were offering, I felt it very disturbing from a trader's point of view. So I've made it my mission to really educate traders on the technology as much as possible so traders can make an educated decision before they buy, from a trader's point of view, in trader speak, not in high-tech stuff that can be very confusing to the average trader. So that's really where the trading computer aspect started, Matt.
Yeah, that's great. And so speaking of education, I think what would be really helpful is to talk about why trading computers specifically are needed. That's a question I'm sure everyone has in the room.
Yeah. So why are trading computers needed? What's so special about a computer for trading versus, say, one off the shelf over at Best Buy? And what it really boils down to is the biggest misconception that traders have. And what that is not realizing the level of real-time data coming into your computer at any one given time through your broadband connection. The overwhelming amount of data that's coming in simultaneously. So think about the last time you went to Netflix, perhaps on your TV or on your computer, and you clicked on a movie and you saw this. You saw the little buffering symbol. And what is buffering? Buffering is when your computer is taking in a huge signal, a huge flow of data, transferring it, turning it into a high-definition movie. It's processing all that data before it actually shows it to you. And it takes some time to do that. In trading, we take a very similar amount of real-time data flow in, except we don't have any time to buffer that data. The computer has to process that data and show you your charts and indicators in real time, spot on, no time for buffering. So most traders don't realize that has to happen, and that's the biggest misconception. Let me show you another example. Have you ever been to a sports bar and you're going to watch the big game? I'm a Heat fan, so last night we had the Eastern Conference Finals on. I hope people don't hold that against me, Matt. But if you've ever been to the big game, you go down to the sports bar, and the same game is playing on all of the TVs in the bar, except in one area they actually have a bunch of HD TVs, and every once in a while mixed in you see those old school analog TVs. I think we've all been there where they sometimes have the old TVs mixed in with the new ones. Have you ever noticed that little time delay between the old TV and the new TV? Like, look at this picture, the guy on the left. This is all the same game. This guy is going up, looks like for a layup or a dunk. The guy on the right is already into the shooting motion. But that's actually the same guy, the same game. What you're seeing is a time delay between the two TVs. And this is exactly what can happen on your trading computer if you don't have enough processing power, if that stream of data is overwhelming your computer. And then what happens? So let's say you have this tiny time delay, fraction of a second to several seconds, while your computer is processing the real-time data stream, and you click to buy a stock at the market or buy some instrument, be it Forex, futures, whatever you're trading. You go to buy at the market, and guess what happens? The price you get filled at is very, very different than what you expected. And that's called slippage. That's called slippage. And it's a very, very frustrating experience if you've had it happen to you. It can ruin your whole trading day, throw off your whole trading system. And you know, if you are a trader, that once you kick in your fight or flight response, that physiological response of your body where you get pissed off, you can make a series of really bad decisions. And the last thing you need is your computer throwing off your trading system. There's so many other things to worry about as traders. We have plenty of things to think about. So that, Matt, is the biggest misconception that traders have in regards to trading technology.
So that is really helpful in understanding and becoming aware of that. And Eddie, one of the things we promised at the top of the call, top of the webinar, was to give a demonstration. So what I'd like to do now, if you'll agree, is just hand over controls, and then you can walk us through a demo on how to know if our own computers meets the minimum benchmark.
Sure, let's do that.
All right. So that should be...
I'm taking control here.
Yeah.
And you guys should see Google. They kind of have a funky piece of art up today.
Yeah, so pretty.
So I'm going to walk you through how to know if your computer is fast enough for trading. So here's how you do it. If you listen carefully before, I mentioned the processor has to take in that huge level of real-time data and turn it into your charts and indicators. Well, the processor is essentially the engine of your computer, the most important component. And if you think of having an ultra-fast trading computer as being a simple equation, ultra-fast trading computer equals, and then a few variables, the biggest variable, the one that's most heavily weighted, is the processor. So let me show you how to find what processor you have. If you have Windows XP or Windows 7, you want to click the Start button. Then you want to right-click on Computer, and then you want to click on Properties. And a page will come up that looks like this. If you're in Windows XP, you'll get a smaller box that pops up. You'll click Start, you'll right-click My Computer, and then click Properties again. And you'll get a smaller window, and you want to click on the General tab. So what you want to do is figure out exactly which processor you have, and that's right here in the middle of the screen under System. In this case, I have the Intel Core i7 4930K processor. Make sure you get the full numbers and letters, all of it. So you want to maybe just jot that down. Then you want to see how much RAM you have. So that's right underneath. In my case, I have 32 gigs. And then the third piece of information you want to make a note of is what operating system you're running. In my case, I'm running the 64-bit version of Windows 7 Professional. So armed with that information, we're going to go to a website now. We're going to go to a website called CPU Benchmark, cpubenchmark.net. Now, when you get to the site, just let the site load. Sometimes there's some advertising on it. Sometimes there's some error code. This company's been working on fixing their site. They have a couple little errors on it, but it really doesn't affect us. What we're looking for is something called our benchmark score. And what this website, what this company does is they've written software that people from all over the world have downloaded and run on their computers, essentially a speed test. It forces, once you download the software, and by the way, you guys don't have to do this, but it forces the computer to run a series of formulas, find the correct answer, and then measure how long it took the computer to come up with that answer. And then it spits that number out to you, and it also sends it back to their database. And that's the part we really want to check out. So we want to look at their database because it will tell us exactly how fast our processor is. So if you look over here, there's a drop-down menu, select a page. You want to go to the searchable CPU list. Searchable CPU list. When you get to that page, there's a search box kind of in the middle on the right side. I know it's not incredibly intuitive, but it's there. And just type in what processor you have. I have the i7 4930K. Now look, you can see that it starts to populate. That's why it's very important to put all the numbers in letters, because these two processors, the 4930MX and the 4930K, will give you very, very different results, very different benchmark scores. So I have the 4930K. I'm just going to click it so it auto-populates, and then I'm going to click Find CPU. And so what happens is this brings me directly to my CPU, the Intel Core i7 4930K, and it gives me this number right here, 13,227. Now what does that mean? That is my CPU benchmark score, my processor's benchmark score. Now, what does the number mean? The minimum score for trading is 7,500. 7,500. Just so you know, all of this information is in our buyer's guide. I'm going to show you how to get our buyer's guide in a few minutes. so you can get a copy of the guide. All this information, everything we're going over, I walk through in the guide, including benchmark scores and processors. So if it feels like I'm going fast, don't worry. We're going to show you how to get that buyer's guide. But again, the minimum benchmark score for trading is 7,500. Anything under 7,500 and you are at risk for slippage. The lower the number, the higher the risk you have in having slippage, in having the data that's showing on your screen being different from real-time pricing. Super important. It's the heaviest weighted component of your computer is the processor. So that is the benchmark score. Now let's think about that, formula for a second. Ultra-fast trading computer equals, I said the heaviest variable, or the most heaviest weighted variable is the processor. The next most important variable is your internet speed. So you want to go to a website. We're going to determine our internet speed. It's called speedtest.net. www.speedtest.net. Let the site load. Another one that has a lot of advertising. You're not seeing it on my screen. I have a ad blocker running. Let the page load. Just let it do its thing. And then this big green pill in the middle that says Begin Test, that's the one you want to click. So go ahead and click Begin Test. And this particular test is going to give you 3 data points. The first one is the ping. The ping is your modem sending a signal to your closest major node and getting an echo. That's the ping. And we're looking for a ping of less than 50 milliseconds. Now I'm showing a ping of 11 milliseconds, so well within tolerance. The next data point, and again, we're going to put up a checklist, and it's also in the buyer's guide. The next most important, today I'm downloading at about 97 megabits per second, which is, believe it or not, a little slower than normal for me here. But the minimum download speed for trading is 5 megabits per second. 5 megabits per second. So I'm well within that number. And then your upload speed, the minimum upload speed is 1 megabit per second. And that is our internet speed test. Matt, if you want to take back control, maybe we can put up that checklist.
Yeah, let's do that right now. So I'll switch back over here. And we'll put up the checklist. And let me know if you can see this slide here. It says Trading Computer Checklist.
Not seeing it just yet.
Here we go. Show my screen. And you have it now?
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
See the trading computer, and then if you just put the checklist up.
Sure. There you go.
So, as I said before, we're looking for a benchmark score 7,500 or higher, a ping less than 50 milliseconds, download greater than 5 megabits per second, upload greater than 1 megabit per second. Now, going back to our trading computer, ultra-fast trading computer formula, the next item is your RAM. RAM is the amount of onboard memory. These days, the minimum is really 8 gigabytes. If you're running trading applications, TradeStation, MetaTrader 4, NinjaTrader, Interactive Brokers, Thinkorswim, and many, many traders we've learned run multiple platforms at the same time. And then you run on top of that a GoToWebinar. GoToWebinar, believe it or not, is pretty resource intensive. And then you're running Windows and maybe you have a couple browsers open. You can get up above 4 or 5 gigs of RAM pretty quickly. So it's really important to have overhang, have some overhead, because if you go past the amount of RAM, your computer requires more memory, it's actually going to go to the hard drives, and your computer is going to freeze up, and you don't want that to happen while you're trading. So these days, 8 gigabytes of RAM is at least Even 16 might be an amount you want. And then the big topic of the day is the operating systems. When it comes to operating systems, I am a fan, and you should be a fan. It's important to have a 64-bit operating system. Now, what does that mean? I'm just going to use an analogy. Do you remember the old days? You'd be driving down a toll road, and you'd come up on a toll booth. There'd be a 5 to 10-minute wait to throw a quarter into a basket. Now, I grew up in New Jersey, and probably the toll road capital of the world. If you remember this experience, it was pretty frustrating and took a lot of patience. Now, what do we have? We have the Speed Pass, or some type of transponder in your car. There's no more toll booth. You simply ride under their readers. You ride at full speed. You don't even stop. And there's no bottleneck there. And so a 32-bit operating system is much more like that old school toll booth when we still had to drive through the toll booth. The 64-bit operating system, Windows Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8, are 64-bit. And so there's no bottlenecks in these operating systems, and information flows more freely. So that's one of the big things about avoiding XP, is that it's got this bottleneck issue. Second thing is that it only will recognize about 3.2 gigs of RAM no matter how much you have installed. That's another big problem. But perhaps the biggest problem now is on April 8th, just last month, Microsoft stopped issuing security patches for Windows XP. Now, you might think this is not a big deal. I'm running Windows XP. It still seems to work fine. Here is the problem. All of the different versions of Windows, XP, Vista, 7, 8, 8.1, they're all written with a very similar code, very similar architecture. And as Microsoft releases security patches for the operating systems they're still supporting, hackers can actually take those patches and reverse engineer what the problem was, what the item Microsoft was trying to patch. And then they can then figure out where the vulnerability is in XP. So as time goes on and Microsoft releases more security patches, XP will become more and more vulnerable. And if you're vulnerable, hackers can put malware and viruses, something called ransomware, on your computer, essentially hijack your computer, try to steal your credit card information, your passwords. They have software that will actually read your keystrokes. As you're entering passwords, there is a filter in there that's sending this information to some third party. So it's super, super important that you upgrade away from XP at this time. So that is the operating system, and those are the 4 big points when it comes to having an ultra-fast trading computer. And of course, the easiest place to get all of this information is in our buyer's guide. So if you guys go to this page right now, tradingcomputersnow.com/MI1, and Matt, if you want to send me back controls.
Yeah, let's do that.
tradingcomputersnow.com/MI1. It will take you to
controls.
Yeah, it'll take you to this screen, and you can go ahead and put in your email address. And once you click Get Guide, it'll take you to our little thank you page. You guys are going to want to bookmark this page because we put together a very special deal just for you guys. I'll go over it very, very quickly. You guys can check this deal out at your leisure. But I put together probably the most inexpensive deal on a complete system with monitors that I ever have in the last 5 years. So you're going to want to check this out. It's got very quickly, it's got an Intel Core i7-4790 processor. This computer has a benchmark score of 10,400. So it easily exceeds the 7,500 we talked about. It's got 8 gigs of RAM, which is plenty. It's got something called a solid-state hard drive. And what that means, a solid-state hard drive is a newer technology. Think of your iPod. You know when you go to look for a song on your iPod, it comes up nearly instantaneously? That's because there's a chip in there. It's called a flash memory chip. And all a solid-state hard drive is a series of these flash memory chips, and it stores everything on those chips. Almost all the computers you guys are using has the same old standard magnetic hard drive that's been in existence for the last 30 years. Inside of that drive you have a kind of looks like a CD, like a compact disc, that's read and writable, and it spins around. There's moving parts in there. And what happens with those drives over time, because it has moving parts, they wear out. They also can, they just stop working over time. So the latest technology uses flash memory chips 7 times faster, much more reliable. They just don't fail. So we include these in our computers. This particular deal comes with 3 monitors, or you could also get the computer by itself. The pricing's right down here. And just one last thing to point you to, and then, Matt, we can open it up for questions.
Sure.
And perhaps you could read them off to me. We do include a 5-year warranty and lifetime technical support. So nobody else offers this stuff. If you scroll down the page, there's a couple of cool things. We threw in some bonuses here, trading education-related bonuses. Definitely check those out at your leisure. We also have some deals where you can get your computer essentially paid for by either TradeStation or FXCM. If you buy a machine from us, TradeStation, and you open a new account with TradeStation, they'll reimburse you 20% of the commissions you pay until the system's completely paid for. FXCM will do a similar thing. They will reimburse you 0.2 of a pip for whatever trading you do with them. So check those two out. And let's go ahead and open it up to questions, Matt.
Yeah, we do have some questions coming in, but in case you had questions and hadn't posted them yet, you can use your GoToWebinar control panel. Just put them in the questions box. I know you guys are already familiar with that, so it's very easy. And then I will do my best to get to all of them. If you can just put them in the queue now, then I'll know what's coming. Eddie, what we have are a couple points coming up here. One is if you could just address you ship internationally, but Jesse asks specifically, can you build a PC to work in Europe, especially considering they have different voltage?
Yes. So, good question. We do have international shipping. The international terms are right here. You can check this out under the menu under international terms. Our computers are designed to handle voltage anywhere in the world. Our power supplies will auto-detect the voltage. The only thing you need on your end is the little the tip of the outlet, the tip of the power plug to go into your wall outlet in your country. But we do ship internationally. It's on average, it's about $250 to $350 to ship a computer anywhere in the world, including insurance. So check out the international terms page. We go into detail about how that works.
Okay, yeah, and so we just have about 10 more minutes here. And we have some good questions coming in now, and I appreciate that, guys. Let me ask you, and I know this is your favorite question, I'm being sarcastic here, but there was a question about, can you talk about Apple and using that for trading?
Yeah. So we get people who use Apple computers, MacBooks and stuff, try to trade on Apple products. And there's a couple of issues there. We can mainly thank our friend Steve Jobs for this, but Apple's source code is a code that Steve Jobs never really wanted to share with anybody. He never wanted to share with any developers. He wanted to control the hardware and the software. And because of that, trading programs have not been written for Apple products. So you can't use Ninja, you can't use MetaTrader 4, you can't use TradeStation on Apple. So what people do is they try to install a version of Windows on an Apple computer and then try to run these programs. The problem is that once you install Windows using Boot Camp or Parallels, it uses so much of the system's resources that the trading applications really seem to struggle. Now look, I get it. I understand that people really like their Apples. They like the functionality. They like the cult being part of the cult. But it really doesn't work for trading. You get a lot more bang for the buck out of a PC for trading. You'll probably spend half amount of money and have none of the problems. None of the problems. So an Apple is not good for trading. It might be good for sending emails and watching videos and basic computing, listening to music, stuff like that. But again, when it comes to trading, it's overpriced, underpowered, hard to make it work.
And so the next
Sorry,
thing,
guys.
well, look, I know there's some hardcore Apple fans, and I've been an Apple fan for a long time, but here's how I would summarize in my own words what you said, which is computers are built for different purposes. So when you go into box stores, that's one purpose for being built for lower price. You have people building them for the beautiful experience on Apple, and ours are built with a specific experience in mind, which is trading. And it's not to hurt anyone's feelings. Each has their own purpose, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Leon brings up the point, how would you compare this to some of the over-the-counter computers like Dell XPS, meaning our computers?
Sure. So that's a really good question, and I get that quite a bit. So if you walk into a Best Buy, chances of you finding an i7 computer are pretty slim. That's the first thing. Second thing is the guys who work at Best Buy, that generally, kids in their late teens or 20s aren't going to have any idea what they're talking about when it comes to trading and being able to help you get a computer that's optimized for you. So you're going to probably walk out making a decision based on price alone, and you're going to come out with an underpowered machine, and you're still going to have problems. That's the first thing. Second thing is, think of Dell and HP as kind of like the Ford and Chevy of computers. They're made for the masses. When they decide to build a new system or a new model, they'll reach out to 10 different contract manufacturers and say, we need 100,000 motherboards and 100,000 power supplies. And essentially they go with whoever offers them the lowest cost product. And what happens is you wind up with a lower quality overall build. Now these companies are so big that they can absorb a certain amount of defect and still be okay with it, because they just will essentially replace it or make you go back to the store to get a new one. These machines usually come with like 1-year warranties. So in summary, it's really just a function of the quality of the parts are more like Ford and Chevy as opposed to like Mercedes or Ferrari, where it's the highest quality, best possible components inside the computer. And also, just you're not going to get a warranty or US-based tech support that you might need. That's really the biggest thing, I think, is a level of support after the purchase, besides lower quality components.
And Eddie, just looking at Dell XPS specifically, since that was what was brought up, they do make high benchmark score process. In other words, it has the 3770 Intel in it. However, it doesn't have the high heat motherboard. I don't know if you want to talk about that. And some of the other more stress test elements meant for power users.
So one of the things that we always do is try to survey our customers as much as possible. One of the things that we've learned is that dependability and reliability are the most important items when it comes to traders. You guys really don't need to know what's going on under the hood. You want to know that when you turn on that machine, it works perfectly, everything is fast, your data is 100% accurate, you don't have to know all the details. That's the first thing. So dependability and reliability. So that's why when you turn to a Dell, you're going to have some issues. What we use in our machines, for example, on this machine, is a military-grade motherboard. What does that mean? That means that the components on this board have been independently tested specifically to heat and vibration. Now, vibration isn't maybe that important unless you live maybe in California, but heat is a killer of electronics. So this is one of the reasons we warranty our machines for a full 5 years, because these things can take running them 24/7 for a very long time. Like Matt said, stress tested. We use super high-end components like solid-state hard drives, Thermaltake power supplies. Just to give you an idea, Thermaltake's power supply, that's the company. That company warranties their power supply for 5 years. That's one of the reasons I use their power supply. So I know they have my back even. So I think that's super important. Then on the other end, if your computer goes down, if it crashes for any reason, when you call my guys, all they do is build computers for me. They know these machines inside and out. When you call a guy at Dell, if you've ever done that, who knows where the call gets routed to. It's very difficult to have a tech support call with someone in another country. That's just been my experience with tech support just from other items. So it's a much, much different experience. Ours is a premium service and a premium computer. I refer to Dell as like a Ford or a Chevy, and we're much closer to Ferrari.
So, Eddie, we are running out of time. I have maybe one more question we could address, but before I do that, do you want to mention just how, if there are more questions, people could get a hold of you or our staff?
You're absolutely welcome to call me anytime at the 800 number here in the chat box or up here in the upper right corner, 800-387-5250. If you click chat, it will send one of my guys or me a message. But my goal is to educate you so you can learn as much as you can about this stuff and you can make an educated decision. I'm here to help. Not really a strong sales guy, but again, I do want to educate you. This special, by the way, expires on Friday, so if you're interested, make sure to bookmark this page. Make sure to get a copy of the buyer's guide. Give us a call. We're happy to help you with anything trading technology related. Thanks, Michael, for having us. We really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, just let us know. And have a great trading week.